The year was 1947. India, freed from the shackles of British rule, was partitioned. This historic event, meant to usher in an era of peace, instead ignited a firestorm of violence and displacement. Amidst this chaos, a seed of discontent was sown in the fertile lands of Punjab, the heartland of the Sikh community. This discontent stemmed from a complex interplay of factors. Political aspirations, religious identity, and economic grievances intertwined, creating a fertile ground for the emergence of the Khalistan movement. The movement, which gained momentum in the 1970s and 1980s, called for an independent Sikh homeland carved out of the Indian state of Punjab. The demand for Khalistan was rooted in a sense of historical injustice felt by some Sikhs. They pointed to the sacrifices made by Sikhs during the independence struggle, only to be allegedly marginalized in post-independence India. Economic disparities, perceived discrimination, and the erosion of Sikh cultural identity further fueled the flames of separatism. While the movement initially enjoyed limited support, a confluence of events in the 1980s, including political turmoil and religious tensions, catapulted it onto the center stage of Indian politics. The Khalistan movement, once a fringe idea, had transformed into a potent force, threatening the very fabric of India's unity. The 1980s witnessed the Khalistan movement morph from a political aspiration into a violent struggle, fundamentally altering the socio-political landscape of Punjab. Punjab, once known for its lush green fields and vibrant culture, descended into an abyss of fear and bloodshed. The serene farmlands and bustling towns were overshadowed by the constant threat of violence. Armed militants, fueled by a potent mix of religious fervor and separatist ideology, unleashed a reign of terror that shook the Indian state to its core. These militants, often young and impressionable, were drawn into a cycle of violence that seemed unending. The Golden Temple, the most sacred shrine in Sikhism, became a battleground. This holy site, revered by millions, was transformed into a fortress, a symbol of the escalating conflict. Militant leader Jarnail Singh Bhindranwale, a charismatic figure who espoused a radical interpretation of Sikhism, fortified the temple complex, turning it into a virtual fortress. His presence and actions within the temple complex were both a rallying point and a flashpoint for violence. His fiery rhetoric and calls for armed resistance resonated with a section of Sikh youth, disillusioned by the perceived injustices meted out to their community. These young individuals, feeling marginalized and oppressed, found a voice in Bhindranwale's impassioned speeches. The Indian government, led by Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, responded with an iron fist. Determined to restore order, the government saw no other option but to take decisive military action. In June 1984, Operation Blue Star was launched, a military operation aimed at flushing out militants from the Golden Temple. The operation was a high-stakes gamble, fraught with risks and potential for significant collateral damage. The operation, though successful in its objective, came at a heavy cost. The temple complex was left in ruins, and the loss of life was substantial. The sanctity of the Golden Temple was violated, leaving deep scars on the Sikh psyche. The emotional and spiritual impact on the Sikh community was profound and long-lasting. The aftermath of Operation Blue Star was catastrophic. The operation not only failed to quell the unrest, but also intensified the anger and resentment among Sikhs. Indira Gandhi, seen by many Sikhs as responsible for the desecration of their holiest shrine, was assassinated by her own Sikh bodyguards. This act of retribution sent shockwaves through the nation. The assassination triggered a wave of anti-Sikh riots across India, resulting in the massacre of thousands of innocent Sikhs. The violence was brutal and indiscriminate, leaving a trail of devastation in its wake. The cycle of violence and retribution pushed Punjab further into the abyss, leaving behind a legacy of pain, mistrust, and division. The wounds of this period are still felt today, a stark reminder of the cost of militancy and violence.
As the flames of militancy engulfed Punjab, the region was thrown into turmoil, affecting countless lives and communities. The Khalistan movement found fertile ground in the Sikh diaspora, who were spread across various countries seeking new beginnings. Countries like Canada, the United Kingdom, and Australia, home to large Sikh populations, became hubs for Khalistani activism. These nations provided a platform for the movement to grow and gain international attention. Gurdwaras, community centers, and online platforms served as spaces for mobilizing support, raising funds, and disseminating pro-Khalistan propaganda. These places became the nerve centers of the movement, where ideas were exchanged and strategies were planned. The diaspora played a crucial role in sustaining the movement, both financially and ideologically. Their contributions were not just monetary, but also involved active participation in spreading the message. Many Sikhs, who had migrated to these countries in search of a better life, carried with them the scars of the Punjab conflict. Their personal histories were intertwined with the larger narrative of the movement. They became easy targets for Khalistani groups who exploited their sense of alienation and historical grievances to garner support for their cause. The emotional and psychological impact of their past made them vulnerable to such influences. Over the years, Khalistani groups in the diaspora have adopted various tactics to advance their agenda. These tactics have evolved with time, adapting to new challenges and opportunities. From organizing protests and rallies to lobbying foreign governments, they have sought to internationalize the Khalistan issue. Their efforts have been aimed at drawing global attention to their cause. They have sought to internationalize the Khalistan issue, making it a topic of discussion in international forums and among global policymakers. The use of social media and online platforms has further amplified their reach, allowing them to connect with a global audience and spread their message far and wide. These digital tools have become essential in their strategy to influence public opinion. However, it's important to note that the Khalistan movement does not enjoy widespread support within the Sikh diaspora. Many community members are opposed to the divisive and violent methods employed by the movement. The vast majority of Sikhs, both in India and abroad, condemn violence and separatism. They believe in peaceful coexistence and the importance of unity. They advocate for peace, justice, and equality within the framework of a united India. Their vision is one of harmony and mutual respect, transcending the boundaries of conflict and division.
Section 4. India's Iron Fist Operation Blue Star and its aftermath. This chapter delves into one of the most significant and controversial military operations in Indian history. The Indian government, facing a growing insurgency in Punjab, felt compelled to act decisively. The situation had escalated to a point where the state's authority was being openly challenged by militant groups. Operation Blue Star, launched in June 1984, was a turning point in the Khalistan conflict. The operation was meticulously planned and executed, involving thousands of troops and heavy artillery. The operation, aimed at removing heavily armed militants from the Golden Temple complex, was met with fierce resistance. The militants were well prepared and fortified, turning the sacred site into a battleground. The decision to send the army into the holiest shrine of Sikhism proved to be highly controversial. Many Sikhs viewed the Golden Temple as a symbol of their faith and identity, making the military action deeply personal and offensive. Critics argued that the government had chosen a heavy-handed approach, disregarding the sanctity of the Golden Temple and alienating the Sikh community. The operation sparked widespread protests and debates across the nation. The operation, though successful in its military objective, left behind a trail of destruction and deeply wounded the Sikh psyche. The damage to the Golden Temple and the loss of life were profound, leaving a lasting impact on the community. The aftermath of Operation Blue Star was catastrophic. The operation not only intensified the insurgency, but also led to a significant increase in violence and unrest in Punjab. The assassination of Indira Gandhi by her Sikh bodyguards triggered a wave of anti-Sikh riots across India. This tragic event further deepened the divide between the Sikh community and the rest of the nation. Thousands of innocent Sikhs were massacred, their homes and businesses destroyed in a frenzy of violence. The riots were a dark chapter in India's history, marked by brutality and communal hatred. The riots left an indelible scar on the Indian conscience, highlighting the fragility of communal harmony in the country. The need for reconciliation and healing became more urgent than ever. The Indian government, in the years following Operation Blue Star, adopted a multi-pronged approach to quell the insurgency in Punjab. This included not only military and police actions, but also efforts to address the underlying issues. This included a combination of military operations, police crackdowns, and political negotiations. the government sought to restore order while also engaging with various stakeholders to find a lasting solution. The government also launched development initiatives in Punjab, aimed at addressing the economic and social grievances that had fueled the Khalistan movement. These efforts were crucial in rebuilding trust and fostering a sense of normalcy in the region.
Section 5. Echoes of the Past. Resurgence and Current Concerns. While the Khalistan insurgency in Punjab was largely crushed by the mid-1990s, the movement has witnessed a resurgence in recent years, albeit in a different form. The focus has shifted from armed struggle to propaganda warfare, with Khalistani groups leveraging social media and online platforms to spread their ideology and garner support. The rise of social media has provided a fertile ground for Khalistani groups to disseminate their message, often laced with misinformation and inflammatory rhetoric. They target Sikh youth, both in India and the diaspora, exploiting their sense of alienation and historical grievances to incite hatred and violence. The Indian government has expressed concerns about the activities of Khalistani groups, alleging that they are receiving support from Pakistan. India accuses Pakistan of providing safe havens to Khalistani militants and using them as a tool to destabilize India. Pakistan denies these allegations, but the issue remains a major irritant in India-Pakistan relations. The resurgence of Khalistani sentiment, though not posing an existential threat to India, is a cause for concern. It highlights the unresolved grievances of the past and the need for dialogue and reconciliation. The Indian government faces the challenge of countering Khalistani propaganda while addressing the legitimate concerns of the Sikh community.